Tonight, the Democrats' healthcare duel, saying goodbye to a king, and
I'll poke a Nazi hornet's nest.
Spain is in the midst of its biggest political crisis in decades. Tonight, the Prime Minister dissolved Catalonia's parliament to stop the separatist-led government from seceding.
Los españoles estamos viviendo hoy una jornada triste en la que la sinrazón se ha impuesto a la ley y ha derribado la democracia en Cataluña.
Catalonia's president declared independence earlier today, and Barcelonans poured into the streets to celebrate. As part of its efforts to counter that move, Madrid says it'll hold snap elections for Catalonia's parliament in December. Defense Secretary James Mattis made his first trip to the demilitarized zone on the border between North and South Korea. He visited U.S. troops stationed on the DMZ, and he took the opportunity to condemn North Korea's nuclear program, while also stressing the importance of diplomacy.
Our goal is not war, but rather the complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
The visit comes ahead of President Trump's first Asia tour, which begins next week. In South Africa, 2 white men who forced a black man into a coffin were each sentenced today to more than a decade in prison. People gathered outside the courthouse celebrated the announcement. In August, the court convicted the men of attempted murder and kidnapping. Cell phone video of the incident went viral last year and provoked public outrage over the state of race divisions in South Africa. It shows the victim crying and begging for his life as the 2 men try to close the coffin and threaten to light it on fire. Actress Rose McGowan appeared at the Women's Convention in Detroit today, speaking publicly for the first time since coming out as one of more than 50 women who've accused Harvey Weinstein of sexual misconduct. She urged women to speak out so men in positions of power can no longer use their status to get away with abuse.
I have been silenced for 20 years. I have been slut-shamed. I have been harassed. I came to be a voice for all of us who've been told we were nothing.
McGowan has accused Weinstein of raping her, and she's become a leading voice against sexual assault in Hollywood. Weinstein has denied allegations of non-consensual sex. President Trump invited children of reporters who cover the White House to the Oval Office. He handed out candy to the kids and gave them compliments, sort of.
I cannot believe the media produced such beautiful children. You're going to grow up to be like your parents? Don't answer.
Hundreds of thousands of people from all over Thailand are in Bangkok today for the 5-day, $90 million funeral of King Bhumibol Adulyadej, who died last year after 70 years on the throne. The world's longest reigning monarch ruled through 11 coup attempts and was revered as a godlike figure in Thailand, where insulting the king is illegal. Many Thais have been wearing all black to observe the official year of mourning that ended yesterday, with his cremation atop a 164-foot funeral pyre. Vice News spent the day with Thai citizens paying their respects to King Bhumibol.
They said mostly they were here like since last night and 2 nights ago, and they would love to come here to show the respect to the King Rama IX. They just want to be here, like because this is the last day that he's gonna be with us. They would love to show the world, like how much we love our father of the nation.
ผมเลยไปทำการสักมาในวันที่25ครับนะฮะไปสักในวันที่25เพื่อได้รู้ว่าพ่อหลวงจะได้อยู่กับเราติดหัวเราไปตลอดครับคือเราเสียชีวิตพ่อหลวงก็ไปกับเราด้วยครับผมคิดอย่างนี้ครับผม
วัน วันนี้คือวันสุดท้ายเป็นช่วงเวลาสุดท้ายของที่เราจะได้เข้ามากราบท่านที่จะได้อยู่ใกล้ชิดท่านที่ตรงนี้แล้วค่ะคือหลายๆคนอยากจะเข้าไปส่งท่านให้แบบใกล้ที่สุดเท่าที่จะใกล้ได้เป็นทุกสิ่งทุกอย่างเป็นชีวิตเป็นจิตใจเป็นมากกว่าพ่อค่ะมากกว่าคิงคือเป็นมหาราชของประเทศไทยแล้วก็
The Obamacare open enrollment period starts just 5 days from now, on November 1st. The bill has survived Republican repeal attempts, but now Democrats are saying they want to change the health insurance system. And they don't have any shortage of proposals for doing it.
Medicare for all.
To allow every American to be able to buy into Medicare.
We can do something in healthcare on a bipartisan basis.
But that abundance of plans might be more of a weakness than a strength.
There's this big debate going on in the Democratic Party about pragmatism versus progressivism. Bernie Sanders still gets the grassroots excited by promising big seismic policy changes, like his signature single-payer healthcare proposal. Sanders' proposal would create a federal insurance plan that covered every American, eventually replacing private insurance. Transformative and highly unlikely. Here's what the party's leadership had to say when Vice News asked about it.
It is the least expensive, less administrative way to go about this, but it is the comfort level with a broader base of the American people is not there yet.
Democrats know this, but it's a political winner for their base. So instead of calling out crazy Uncle Bernie for his pie-in-the-sky proposals, they're introducing plans of their own to achieve the same ultimate goal, universal coverage, in a more feasible, politically palatable way. Senator Brian Schatz's plan is one of those. His Medicaid for All proposal, which he introduced this week, would give states the option to allow all of their citizens to buy into Medicaid, the federal health insurance program for low-income Americans. It joins a host of other variations on the same progressive theme. None of them will pass as long as Republicans are in power. But Democrats like Schatz insist that having concrete proposals, even competing ones, is what differentiates them from the GOP.
To have 4 or 5 good ideas about how to get to universal coverage is a sign of a party that understands that not everything can be decided in one room by 3 or 4 people, and then they send the word out to the rest of America.
Let's be real, though. What that really means is the party still has no clear, cohesive set of policy proposals to guide them out of their Trump-imposed wilderness. They can agree on a set of broad goals, but not how to achieve them. This is one of their biggest problems, and the reason the party is still pretty stubbornly divided. For instance, in our conversation, Schatz never mentioned Sanders by name, but listen to him throw shade at people who propose sweeping change.
It's a really weird thing in today's politics that if you are proposing something that is feasible, it is less than progressive. I don't think it's necessarily progressive to propose to people that they lose their private healthcare insurance, because I've got an idea about how the system should have been configured in the first place.
What do you say to some of Sanders' supporters who got on board with him because they were frustrated with the Democratic Party doing sort of incremental change and saying, let's get past what we can get past?
Well, I think that a public option is a pretty aggressive idea, and I think we really have a chance to enact this. People who struggle with their healthcare premiums, people who don't have coverage at all right now, don't have the luxury of envisioning a system 5, 10, 20 years from now that would be better.
Every year, more U.S. police officers die by suicide than from gunshots or car crashes combined. 108 cops took their own lives in 2016, and the number this year is on track to be even higher. Law enforcement advocates call it a silent crisis, but if it doesn't get a lot of attention, it's partially because police rarely speak out about the problem. But in South Carolina, One grieving sheriff is trying to change that.
This is all the badges I've had in my career.
Leon Lott has been in law enforcement for 42 years.
This is the team that we had, and 2 out of this group committed suicide. This was the 80s and early 90s, and so the culture then is that you didn't talk about suicide, you didn't talk about emotional problems, you didn't show any sign of weaknesses at all.
This summer, he faced something his department hadn't seen in over a decade. One of his deputies committed suicide in his patrol car after work. Derek Fish was 28 when he took his own life in July. He'd been a sheriff's deputy for 6 years, known for his cheerful quirkiness, and nicknamed Nemo by his colleagues.
This is probably going to be one of the hardest press conferences I've ever done in the past 20 years. Probably.
After his death, Lott did something sheriffs almost never do. He went public.
I failed on Friday. My job is to protect these guys. And that's physically and mentally. My job is to protect them and take care of them. It's been kind of been that little hidden secret that we have, so we don't want to talk about it.
Do you think the police departments are behind on that?
Law enforcement resists change. We're big and bad cops. We're not supposed to have emotions. We're not supposed to have feelings. We're not supposed to cry and get upset. You know, that's not us. And I think a lot of law enforcement leaders haven't realized that that's wrong to have that attitude. It's wrong. And an agency is always going to reflect the head of the agency. It's got to start at the top. It can't start from the bottom and go up. It's got to start from the top and go down.
Fish's suicide was especially hard on Lott because he thought he'd been doing everything right.
That program probably saved my life and probably saved my career.
Last year, he started a PTSD program for new recruits, one of the first in the nation, in which veteran officers like Deputy Kelly Hendrick talk openly about their own battles with post-traumatic stress. It's their first time back in the classroom since the death.
I had 2 critical incidents that were 4 months apart from each other. The first one was I was living with another police officer, took my weapon out of my holster and shot himself in front of me. Then in July of 2007, I was involved in an officer-involved shooting. Been through a lot, seen a lot. Over my 13 years, we've lost a lot of good deputies. Lost my sergeant a couple years ago. Ryan Raw got killed in the line of duty. And here just recently, we had Deputy Fish take his own life in this back parking lot back here. So it's been a struggle. I think if we get to a point where we can release some of that stigma, officers will feel better about talking about things. So things don't build up and become just a mass casualty in their lives. So.
Even in this department, which is pretty advanced, we're not there yet.
No, we're not there. We've still got a lot of work to do, but I think we're moving in the right direction.
At Region 3 headquarters, Fish's colleagues are still trying to process his death. Matt James was with him that day. Did the situation with Derek hit you hard?
I don't know. It, on one hand it did. I mean, you always go through the evaluation process where you're like, what is my piece in it? On the other hand, I worked with him all day that day, and he handled all of his calls standard. All of his idiosyncrasies were the same. What do you do if someone decides to go that route and they're not looking, they're not making a show about it, they're not looking, it's not a cry for help, it's just a very concrete decision. And, what do you do with that?
This is the challenge facing Sheriff Lott. How do you train your officers to think differently about mental health without overcorrecting or assigning blame? Is it about preparing the individual officer, or is it about trying to change the entire culture?
It's both. You got to do that. Everybody within that agency's got to to buy into it. They've got to accept it. They got to know that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to get the help. They're my kids. So my job is to take care of them. And I should have done something. I don't know what it was. I can't answer that, but I lost him.
Authorities made another arrest yesterday in an investigation connected to one of Russia's most celebrated and controversial film and theater directors. Kirill Serebrennikov has been under house arrest since August, awaiting trial on charges of embezzling more than $1 million in state funds between 2011 and 2014. He vehemently denies those claims. His ballet about the iconic dancer Rudolf Nureyev was supposed to open in July, but was postponed just days before the premiere, allegedly because its nudity and focus on Nureyev's homosexuality offended the conservative Russian establishment. The production is now opening in December without its director. Supporters say the charges against Serebrennikov are state censorship.
The actors at Kirill Serebrennikov's theatre in Moscow are getting ready to perform without their director. Serebrennikov has made the Gogol Center famous with productions that challenge religion, state corruption, and sexuality. When the investigation began in May, authorities initially alleged that Serebrennikov's state-funded production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, first performed in 2012, had never taken place.
Я играл, и я текст даже знаю, как бы вот. Это то же самое, если я скажу, что вас нет.
Actor Nikita Kukushkin has worked with him for 10 years.
Do you think he prides himself on being able to tackle these subjects that other people are somehow too afraid to tackle?
Я думаю, что все художники пытаются говорить на темы, которые им интересны. Просто Кирилл говорит об этом на максимально понятно для этих людей. Я думаю, что в этом его отличие.
At his last court hearing, Serebrennikov's house arrest was extended until January. Close friends like Nikita stood outside the court alongside Moscow's art world elite in quiet protest. Serebrennikov's supporters say it's his outspokenness, particularly when it comes to criticism of the church, that's drawn the scrutiny of the authorities. For his defenders, his case has become a symbol of state censorship.
Я думаю, что на самом деле здесь вокруг этого вопроса консолидированы, да, конечно, не только актеры, а лидеры мнений из разных профессий. То есть это больше история диалога лидеров мнений страны с государственной властью.
Inside the courthouse, Ksenia Sobchak, a socialite and TV presenter, testified on Serebrennikov's behalf.
Меня зовут Ксения Собчак. Я теперь имею право баллотироваться в президенты.
The next day, she announced she'd be running in Russia's presidential elections in 2018. We caught up with her backstage at a Moscow TV studio.
So you think there's absolutely no credence to the criminal charges against him? This is purely an act of censorship?
I'm not a lawyer to say if there is some credence or not, but what I really see is that people who stole millions and billions of dollars, they are never sent to court. You know, they are all free, they're friends of Putin, and that's it. And Kirill, for some very small amount of money compared to them, is in jail. And this is not fair in the state where courts are not independent.
Are you going to pick this up as an issue in your campaign?
Yes, of course. It will be one of the big issues in my campaign.
Not all Russian filmmakers are sympathetic to Serebrennikov. Most Russian cinema is funded by the Ministry of Culture, and patriotic movie making has deep roots in Russia, going back to the glory days of the USSR.
It's Gold Lion in Venice. Да, а то вот наверху есть Оскар.
Nikita Mikhalkov is a titan of Russian cinema and a proud nationalist.
Это гениальная надпись. За все надо платить, Никита. С огромным юмором человек.
Do you think the case against Serebrennikov can be seen as censorship?
Это говорят люди, которые никогда не жили при советской власти. Они ничего не знают про цензуру. Очень выгодно определенной части либеральной интеллигенции в этом видеть, так сказать, политическую подоплеку. Сидят под следствием губернаторы. И все это никакого интереса. Один вопрос мне ответьте. Хоть один спектакль или один фильм Серебренникова лежит на полке, не вышел на экраны или на сцену? Хоть один.
The example that's given is of the Nureyev ballet that's been delayed at the Bolshoi.
Вы понимаете, что такое большой театр? Вообще, значение большого театра для национальной культуры нашей страны. Ты хочешь повесить хуй Нуриева на фоне своего спектакля? Поставь его в своем Гоголь-центре. Зачем ты лезешь в большой театр?
Serebrennikov can be held under house arrest for up to a year before his case goes to trial. If he's found guilty, he faces up to 10 years in jail.
Для меня Кирилл Семенович – это отчасти отец, да, равно отец.
Do you expect him to be released and it to all blow over, or do you think he'll go to jail? What do you think is going to happen?
В итоге его все равно выпустят. Мы будем работать. В общем-то, для этого, как мне кажется, и была создана 7-я студия, которую создал Кирилл Семенович.
Back in 1992, Wolfenstein 3D pioneered the first-person shooting genre. The storyline was set in World War II and was pretty basic. You're an American spy, the Nazis have captured you and thrown you in a dungeon, and you have to kill them all to get out. Fast forward 25 years. The storyline's been rebooted in Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, which comes out today. It's set in an alternate world where the Nazis won the war, colonized America, and are letting the KKK run wild. It's up to you to take America back. Tommy Bjork is a narrative designer at the Swedish-based company that developed the new Wolfenstein. He wrote the dialogue and the backstory of the new game.
How much were you thinking about current events when you were writing this story?
So when we started making the game, and it was in 2014, we started writing the story. We had already known that we were going to America. We had no idea that
there would be actual Nazis.
That there would be actual Nazis in American streets. Growing up in the 80s in Sweden, we had like a wave of racism and neo-Nazism. When I was a kid and a teenager, you had like Nazis marching on the street, just like you do now in American streets.
It sounds kind of personal for you.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I fucking hate Nazis. Can you say that?
You can say that.
So it's like, to me, working on this series is, it just feels really good to contribute to the series like this, which has at its core this anti-Nazi message, and I think that's good.
But not everyone likes the anti-Nazi messaging. Some gamers have gotten on social media to protest the company's ad campaigns, or even threatened to boycott the game altogether. This hasn't fazed Bethesda, the company who's publishing and promoting the game. Instead of shying away from the political messaging, Pete Hines, the company's PR director, is doubling down on it.
A lot of companies would say, back away from it, please buy our game.
Well, there's one main difference between us and our game and everything else, which is games about Nazis. Unless you're a Nazi, there should be nobody who is opposed to the idea of being against Nazis. Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, it shouldn't matter. Like, everybody should be unified in that against those particular folks.
Make America Nazi-free again, or not my America. Basically, it sounds like, okay, are we talking about Trump here?
No, we're talking about Nazis.
You're kind of poking the hornet's nest here.
Maybe a little bit, but the hornet's nest is full of Nazis, so fuck those guys. Like, I'll poke a Nazi hornet's nest.
Who the fuck are you, white boy?
The game goes beyond just Nazis, though. There's also some commentary on how white people and black people often see America differently. BJ Blazkowicz, the character you control, isn't always comfortable with that.
We're organizing for a revolution in America.
We?
Most people know Deborah Wilson from her time as a comedian on Mad TV.
You know who's running the South after the Nazis took over? The Ku Klux motherfucking Klan. Huh? Am I right?
But in Wolfenstein, her character seems modeled after the Black Panthers. She plays Grace Walker, the leader of the revolution against the Nazis.
Black America's been fighting the Nazis, in this fictional world. And Grace has to really lay it down and explain to BJ, hey, there's this thing we have called racism here. Maybe you heard of it. A lot of people playing it, it's gonna be white dudes, just looking at demographics, right? And that will make some people uncomfortable, I think.
I think gameplay should make you uncomfortable.
Really?
I absolutely believe that. Why? Because you don't learn from comfort levels. If you're comfortable in the first grade, you can stay there, but that's not gonna allow you to move forward.
I think a lot of people, when they play games, they don't want to be challenged like that. They may not be seeking that.
That's okay if you don't seek it. You don't have to want to seek that.
But it's kind of pushed.
It's going to be there anyway, and it doesn't. And here's the thing: the game doesn't push that. It has its own agenda as a game, and as a game, it will do as such. You get a chance to immerse yourself in it because you're the catalyst. Once you put the game down, the game is over. The game is stopped. But you're still constantly psychologically moving through your day, your experience, your life, and every relationship that you have, and how you relate to everything in your world. But when you pick it back up again, you can immerse yourself and make choices and say, I choose not to go that far in it. I just want to play. That's up to you. That's America.
That's Vice News Tonight for Friday, October 27th.